I'm ready here. But good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for Anglophone Studies Research Team, Université de Lomé, to welcome our panelists. In the framework of the gigantic Fulbright Specialist Residency Program. The program is fitted out with a project entitled Toward a Digital Renaissance in Arts and Humanities Research and conducted by Dr. Jacqueline Cofield. Dr. Jacqueline Cofield is a professor at CUNY Hunter College and a joint teaching fellow at the Whitney Museum of American Art. She holds a PhD from Columbia University, where her thesis examined the epistemologies and aesthetic practices of Black women artists. Now, Dr. Jacqueline Cofield, you have the floor, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agbo. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us both online and in person. As we begin, I would like to offer my sincere thanks to the U.S. Embassy in Lomé, particularly the Department of Public Affairs, and to the faculty of the University of Lomé here in Togo, especially the Department of Anglophone Studies for their continued partnership, care, and hospitality throughout the speaker series. My name is Dr. Jacqueline Cofield. Let me share this. I thought I was sharing this. Okay. My name is Dr. Jacqueline Cofield, and I'm here as a Fulbright specialist working at the intersection of digital humanities, education, and global knowledge and cultural exchange. Today's session brings us into conversation with libraries, not only as physical spaces, but as infrastructures of public knowledge, access, and care. Throughout this series, we've been asking how knowledge is preserved, who can access it, and under what conditions. Libraries sit at the center of these questions, particularly in digital contexts where access is often assumed but unevenly experienced. This session invites us to think about digital spaces, digital access as a practice, not a guarantee, and about the role of librarians as educators, advocates, stewards of information who help communities navigate resources, platforms, and possibilities. And any of my students in any of my courses that I teach, they know how much I love librarians and engaging with libraries. And so I'm very, very honored today to have our honored guest, Amber Sertin from the New York Public Library. We are honored today by the presence of Amber Sertin, a librarian and outreach specialist with the New York Public Library, where she has worked for over a decade, primarily with school communities and library branches in Harlem and across New York City. Amber's work exemplifies how libraries functions as digital humanities in practice through public access to digital collections, community-based literacy, and the intentional amplification of Black and Indigenous voices. As co-founder of New York Public Library's Vibrant Voices initiative, and I encourage everybody to check out the Vibrant Voices initiative, which you can find online. And through her sustained engagement with educators and students, Amber demonstrates how digital resources become meaningful only when paired with relationships, advocacy, and care. Her presentation today reminds us that libraries are not neutral repositories, but living systems that shape how people encounter information, history, and themselves, and that librarians play a critical role in ensuring digital access and how it becomes available, usable, relevant, and transformative. I'm looking forward to this conversation so much today and all that it will inspire for us in this scholarly community here at the University of Lomé. Thank you so much, Amber, for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Dr. Hofield, what a beautiful introduction. I really love that. So let me pull up my slides. All right. So thank you again. I'm really excited to be here from the New York Public Library and to discuss libraries, public knowledge, and digital access. And before we begin, my name is Amber Sertain, and I want to shout out my colleague, Kara Madden, who also helped and was not able to be here with us this afternoon. So, um, but before we dive in a little bit, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about what I'm gonna discuss today, which will be the New York Public Library basics to get you familiar with the library system here. Talk about some of our resources like our digital library, our databases. Highlight some of our curriculum and our educator development here at the New York Public Library, and then some additional resources that you will have access to. Kara also created a handout that will have links to everything that we talk about. So a little bit before I jump into that, I've been at the New York Public Library for over 10 years, and I really found myself. I became a teen librarian, so I was working with teens, and then I found myself really working with teachers. Um, and I found this position that I'm in now, where I actually go into schools and really highlight all of the library's resources to our entire school communities. New York Public Library is so large and there's so many different departments doing so many amazing things. And as an outreach librarian, I'm able to kind of bring all that together and highlight it. So some basics about New York Public Library. We have 92 locations here in our three boroughs that we serve, which is Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island. Brooklyn, which also is a borough in New York City, has its own library system, and Queens also has its own library system. So here in New York City, with our five boroughs, we have three public libraries, and anybody working and living and pay property taxes in the state of New York can have our library cards. Um, and so really what's so great about New York City is that as a student, as an adult, as somebody new to our city, right, you could technically have three separate library cards and you have access to all of those libraries' resources. Um, for New York Public Library specifically, we have adult, teen, and children's programming. Everything is free at the library, right? So there's something for everybody. Um, we have specific dedicated educator programming and professional development that anybody could technically attend, but it's really engaged for educators in classrooms, right? We have a ton of digital resources. Some of them I'll highlight today. Um, we also have access to ebooks and audiobooks for anybody who has a library card. And so we know that a lot of our patrons cannot always physically get to our branches. During the pandemic, right? Libraries were closed. And so making sure that you still have access to resources. Um, we used to have fines at the library, and then we, as a tri-li library system, so all three public libraries, we got rid of that because we realized that fines are sometimes keeping our patrons outside of our libraries and not accessing our resources. Um, and so we decided to get rid of that. And so we do have a ton of digital resources, right? Again, we experienced, especially during the pandemic, people needing access to things, right? Our physical locations were closed, but how can we still provide as much as possible to our communities? And through that, we've always had our databases, right? But really highlighting and pushing those out more to our communities who maybe never had any like library training, right? Or library knowledge to know that here's a database and this is what you can access with it. Again, just being able to access ebooks and audiobooks, right? Showing teachers, showing parents, showing students that they have this even if we're trapped in our homes and can't get out. NYPL also has created an app that is free on our app stores, and it's basically our website, but in an app format. And something that I always highlight to students when I'm speaking to them is that there is a checkout on the app where maybe you don't feel like interacting with anybody at the library that day. You can physically check out your library book on your phone, and just another way to make things accessible sometimes to people. And so again, at the New York Public Library, right, one of our many communities that we focus on, right, are our educators. And so my team, we work with kindergarten through 12th grade. We work with our public schools, our private schools, our charter schools, right, our parochial schools, any schools that will let us in. Um, and we want to highlight all of our resources. We know that teachers are so busy, right? A lot of teachers were checking out books that they were using in their classroom with their personal cards. And again, that's limiting their access, right? And so we've decided let's create an educator card. So anybody teaching kindergarten through 12th grade, they just show proof that they are in a school. And now they can have an educator card, which gives them extra privileges and removes it from their personal card. Um, so with an educator card, right, they can have up to 100 items checked out on their card. They get 60 days with these items because we know that you're teaching in your classroom, so you may need it longer for certain things, right? So we want to give you that extended time without you worrying about it. What was a little special about educator cards before the library got rid of fines is that educators did not receive any fines. We want to make sure that you're using those books, right? You're getting them into students' hands, you're giving them access. So we want to make sure that you feel safe doing that. And then something else that was slightly unique, educators can request up to 50 items on their card. Those are the items that they're waiting for. Whereas on a personal card, it's only 30. So just making sure that our educators feel that the library is supporting them in what they need to, provide in their professional development and in for their classrooms and their students. What makes New York Public Library slightly different from Brooklyn Public Library and Queens Public Library is that we have our research libraries as well. And so we have the Stephen A. Schwartzman building, which is our most famous. Maybe you've seen it in images. It has the famous library lions outside. And this is in Midtown of Manhattan, right? So 5th and 40th Avenue. And our famous lions are named Patience and Fortitude. We also have our Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, which is uptown in Harlem. Right, and it houses all of Arturo Schomburg's archives and collections of materials that he sourced. And then we have our Library for Performing Arts, which is at Lincoln Center, where we have our famous ballets and operas. They share the same area. What's unique about the Library for Performing Arts is that it is both a research and circulating, whereas our other research spaces, it is non-circulating. And that holds all of our performing arts, our plays. So a really beautiful space. And then in our Starvos Niarchos Foundation Library, which is a mouthful to say, which is right across the street from the Stephen A. Schwartzman. That is our seventh floor library, right? It is relatively a newer building, a newer space, but our space has been there for a very long time. What I love to tell our students in class visits is that we have rooftop access. So you could go to the seventh floor and you can sit out there, you can read, you can do your work. And so it's a beautiful space that everybody has access to if they have the knowledge to know that it's there. Um, and so in that seventh floor building library, there is our business center, right? And so that is our other research library, and they host a lot of great programs like resumes, entrepreneurship programs, so lots of things going on in all of these different spaces. And then, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our databases and our digital libraries. Um, so before I dive in a little bit, in my work as an outreach librarian, um, and I think we've always been doing this, but I think I see it a little bit more when I go into my classrooms. And again, I could see a second grade class, and then one day I see a fourth grade class, and then the next week I'm seeing 12th graders. Um, and their library knowledge is all different. And I feel like I'm teaching library literacy. A lot of our schools here in New York City do not have libraries, dedicated school libraries with school librarians. And sometimes our students are not being taken to their public libraries by their adults. And so the knowledge of how to use a library and how to interact with it sometimes is new or daunting to people. So really like teaching them, I can make you a library card and then that could be our interaction. But the next step is like, how do you use your library card and how do you interact with it, right? And so one of those ways, again, especially if you cannot physically get to your library, right, is through the knowledge of our databases and what we have online. And so at the New York Public Library, we do have over 500 databases. Some of them you can access right from home. All you need is your library card and your special PIN that gives you access from home. And many of these will help most of our patrons with things that they're looking for, right? Maybe newspapers, magazines, research. Some of our databases, you have to physically go into specific locations. Sometimes it's every location, our 92 locations. Sometimes it's only the research, depending upon which that database is. But again, just having the knowledge that this is here on our website and that you can explore it, right? And that you have access as long as you have that library card. And something else that we love to explore during our class visits, right, in talking with, we also not only speak to students, right, but I educate teachers. I do professional development in schools to highlight all of this that they can use in their classrooms and how to integrate it. I work with parents, so not only am I teaching their children access, right, but also showing parents. And for me, I'm a visual learner. I love photography. And I just think highlighting our digital collections, anybody has access to it. Again, with the knowledge that you have the NYPL website and you know digital collections, you could go to this and explore our images. And so this is a living database, and it's always being updated. Um, it has a different number every time that you look at it, right? Because our colleagues are finding our materials and then digitizing them for all to see, even if you do not have a library card. Um, and so this is something that is just fun to look at once in a while to see what they've added and what collection it's added to, where it came from. Again, all of the links are in that handout that you guys have. Something else that is interesting in our like digital collection that again anybody has access to is our digital research collection, where you can read and download these items for free. Right, so that is something that you may want to take a look at. It is very interesting also just to be able to see archives, right? Maybe it's something that you didn't even know you had access to. And so just taking a look at that as well. And something else at the library that we have, again, we are really dedicated to all of our communities, right? So whether that be parents or, people without children, teenagers, educators, senior citizens, we are really trying to improve our communities and make engagement stronger. Um, and again, having access. We know as educators, you get really busy, right? You're teaching in your classrooms or you're finding things, but maybe sometimes using the library may be something that slips your mind that you can use, that you can incorporate. Something that we have our colleagues who are sourcing and creating ready-to-use curriculum guides that anybody, again, has access as long as they have knowledge that it exists on our website. Um, these are supporting educators in incorporating primary sources into their classrooms using library archives that they may not have had access to because they weren't going into our research collections because they are actively working and, living here in New York City and doing other things. So we've decided to bring these collections outside, right, to share. And what's really great about these and what makes them also special is that we have them in multiple languages, right? Because we know we have so many different learners. We want people to have access to it widely. And so everything is, we have physical copies that we give to educators, but we also, again, it's on our website, and anybody has access to make public our joy was one of our first curriculums that came out, and this was really geared towards 7th through 12th grade educators. But again, anybody can access it and look at it, learn from it. And so it's really just taking primary sources from the library's collection and highlighting our different content, right? And also then giving model questions that teachers can incorporate into their classrooms or working with the library to incorporate these. So really just kind of compact. And so here's a beautiful spread. We had our reading dangerously, that's talking about the freedom to read and censorship. We have our rent strikers. And then our latest one that was actually geared towards our younger educators, 3 through 5th graders, is Hogtown, when pigs clean the streets and talking about sanitation. So fun things to explore on our website. And so with that, right, we have all of these resources, but sometimes if we have them but nobody knows about them, right, what do we do with that? And so we're trying to build community with our educators, right? So how do we do that? We offer workshops at the library. Sometimes it will be physical in person. Um, Sometimes they are virtual, right? Because again, if you're working, it is hard to get to our physical location sometimes. And so some of these workshops would be on days when our school system is closed. And so then we're able to get more educators to come. We have author events, we have professional development half day, all day. Um, we also have more less academic, you would say, for our educator community, right? Every September, we offer a comedy show for educators, and we have teachers who do stand up and teachers who come to the audience. It is available for the public, but it's geared towards, again, educators. So just building community. Um, Specifically with my team, right, we are dedicated to a specific area, either in Manhattan, Bronx, Staten Island. Um, and we're really building a close relationship with our schools, right? So some schools I've been working with for 6 years, and that's a long relationship, right? And so it's just how can we weave ourselves into each other, right? And sharing our resources. We know that it's so important that at the library, we have all of these resources, right? But sometimes people are not coming to us for whatever reason. They don't know about us. They had a bad interaction with the library. Maybe where they came from, the libraries were only for specific communities, right? And so there's all of that. And so how do we really just meet our communities where they are to share all of this? Something else that we have at the New York Public Library that's really special in our country actually is our My Library NYC relationship. This is just another way that we've been building relationships with our teachers. This program has um, been going on for over 13 years now. And it is a partnership between the three New York City libraries and the Department of Education in New York City. And so we create curated teacher sets, as you can see here in this image, that get sent directly to schools so that they have access to these materials right there. Um, and so with this partnership, the schools that are in the program have to have a physical library in their school that is functioning, and either an actual school media specialist with a degree or a teacher assigned to the library. And then it actually comes with like somebody who works closely with the school librarian, setting up classroom visits and all of that. And so these teacher sets are really beautiful. We know that a lot of schools do not have enough resources for their students, right? Um, and so we have a couple of different sets. This one pictured could be a topic set. So a topic set could have 10 to 30 titles, and it'll have multiple copies of the same. And this could be maybe the teacher is teaching on a specific theme. And so we've curated this teacher set to have that theme. We also have manipulatives, so puppets that teachers could use. We also, maybe a teacher is starting a book club or they're doing independent group reading, and so they can order a book club set, which is 10 of one title. And so they could order as an educator, right? They have that educator card. They could technically have 100 of their educator card. Right, they could all have 100. And so we have multiple languages, and it is geared for kindergarten all the way through 12th. And so it's just a really beautiful partnership that has been going strong for a really long time, and it keeps growing. Again, something else, and now that you have that knowledge, right, you can go to that website, you can kind of see what our teacher set collection looks like, um, right? And then we also have our educator collection at the library, which is professional development books for teachers, library professionals, and parents. Again, anybody has access to it. And with working with our teachers and having conversations and showing up for them when they need us, right, for a class visit, or they need additional book titles for their classroom, right? We're always saying, please let us know what you need and what you're looking for. And so this educator collection is part birth of professionals here at the library, but also our community telling us what they are looking for and what they need. So this is always a growing collection, looking for new things, but definitely take a look at it. There's some really great, interesting titles in there. And then some additional resources. This is exciting. As Dr. Cofield had mentioned earlier, this is my personal baby at the New York Public Library, and I'm just really honored and excited to be able to say that I'm a co-founder of Vibrant Voices here at New York Public Library. And so we have tons of book lists here. We have our best books for kids, our best books for teens that come out like every late December, early January. We also have best books for adults. Vibrant Voices is more of a hidden gem. So we are highlighting authors of color. Um, that are either debut or sophomore authors. So authors that may not be publicly recognized or pushed as much in our publishing world, right? Because their name is less known. Um, and we just want our students in the classes and in our library branches and our city streets that we see every day who represent us to see themselves reflected in literature, which, especially for me growing up as a biracial, young girl living in a very small rural white community, I didn't like reading. Nobody really ever showed me anything that I was interested in, and or anything that anybody looked like me. And so we really believe in our windows and our sliding glass doors, and our mirrors. And we wanted our book list to represent who we were working with every day, who we are. And so with the Vibrant Voices book list that we put out, which comes out, we are in our fifth year. In our first couple of years, because we started during the pandemic, we were only digital. So you could only access our list on our website. And we also created this beautiful educator guide. So titles from the Vibrant Voices list, we pulled out some and we made a guide because we work so closely with our educators. We know that sometimes they are not reading all of the latest titles that could be really important and useful in their classroom or beyond their classroom for their students. So in our educator guide, we put, a synopsis. We've created discussion questions that teachers, parents, after-school educators, anybody could use. Older siblings could use if they're babysitting. And then to take it a step further, right, again, with creating that library literacy, and how to use the library, we created extension activities that go with the book, but also highlight certain resources at the library and how can we tie those in. So again, with the knowledge, you have access to this. It is on the handout. And this, yeah, is really important. It's my baby. We actually have print physical copies of our bookmarks. And this gets published right in time for the new school year here. So like late August, beginning of September to help, students and educators all like. Again, we love our book lists. So we also have our celebration of 50 years of queer picture books. And this has two parts. One is more scholarly, and looking at certain materials. And then there's a book list that anybody has access to, with, again, discussion questions that you can use for the younger ones in classrooms, or in home. We also have our curriculum guides through our Schomburg research library. These are all digitally, available, so you have access to them, to look at them, to look at the materials, right? And anybody, again, has access to it. So feel free. Again, with our access, right, we highlight things for everybody and we have resources for even our littlest ones. We have early childhood programs for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers at the library. But again, if you can't make it, right, our early literacy team has created these at-home play guides. That show you what you need, and how to talk about certain things with your children, right? So I also feel like educators can incorporate this. Anybody has access and they can use it how they see fit. And it just helps us grow and build, and be stronger library users, and connected to our communities. We also have a ton of other things. So we have the two next slides are education for our children and for our teens. And so this is just a quick snapshot, but we offer after school in some of our branches, which is a free drop-in program for children 6 to 12. And so parents or caregivers can bring their students. There'll be homework help. We have snacks. They'll have enrichment activities for the students. We just have so much compact on here. We have our book list, our book recommendations, all of these things right here, for our students and parents to access. We also have, when I ask students, what do you think about when you think about the library, right? And everybody always says books. So I love to highlight our STEAM kits. With your library card, we have these amazing STEAM kits which highlight science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And parents can take them home and it'll come with a set of books and activities that they can do at home. One is on microbiology and it has a microscope and cells, right? So all of these different ways that we are interacting, we are creating space in our branches. For our teens, right? Historically, I feel like libraries have lacked in building community for teens and making teens feel safe in a library. It goes from children and story times and how much we love them, and then they become adults. But the teens have been lacking. So at New York Public Library, we've really pushed our love and community for teens. I started at the library working with teenagers specifically, and so it's always been my passion. But we are really doing so much. We have our latest career resources fair where we invite teachers to bring eighth through 12th grade to our resource fair at our main library with our lions. And it's like a half day event where they get to meet different job orgs and hear from people. We offer that once a year, and then in the fall, we offer our college and career in the same space. We have amazing contests. This year, we're celebrating 250th anniversary of the birth of the United States, and so we have our creative writing contest where we're putting out a call to teens. And again, this is where community and relationship building really comes in. When I share this out with the teachers and the school librarians I've been working with for years to let them know we have this opportunity where your students get to be creative and then possibly win, the amount is normally $500 or $250, right? We're building this community. And so it's always amazing to see when a teen actually submits and they put my name in something so that we know that our words are passing through and they're coming back. And so it's just beautiful to see that. We also offer jobs and opportunities to our teens where they can help either they are civic teen center, civic ambassadors, and they're help creating programs at the libraries for their peers or working with children. They also help create a magazine called Portal for Children, and everybody has access to it digitally, and we have physical copies at our branches. So just another way to make sure that our teens feel safe in our spaces and know that they can be there, they should be there, they can use their voices, they can find job opportunities and growth in so many different ways. And I really hope that through all of this community building, we're also highlighting access to knowledge, but also just access to the power of librarianship. And showing our teens that there's a space and our children for them at the library. So that is what I have. My email and my colleagues' emails are there. Feel free to follow up with me. If you're ever here, please let us know. We'd love to give you, tours of our spaces. So I will stop talking now.
Thank you so much, Amber. I mean, I feel so strongly about the amplifying and making more visible the work that you all do at the New York Public Library. I do feel is exemplary for communities across the country, but I would say also the world, right? The New York Public Library is in all these offerings that you have and these commitment that you have to community building and also making everyone feel seen, making everyone in the community understand that they matter and that there's programming that's available to them, that is available both in-person opportunities and digital opportunities. I mean, when we think about the digital humanities, this is an exemplary case study what you all are doing. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us today. I've had the pleasure. And the other thing I want to point out is like, you guys really are committed to people having fun in the library too. The fact that you have the educator comedy shows, I have been to the after school programs and with my daughter, and at one point there was a performer who I follow, have since followed on social media. He's just recently been Grammy Award nominated, Fuchs, and he did a little concert for the kids, and they were dancing. I mean, it oftentimes, as you say, people, especially in these spaces that where humanities are should be accessible, like libraries, like museums, etc. Oftentimes in these institutions, people feel intimidated. They don't have, as you mentioned, the library literacy, or I would say the museum literacy. They don't know how to interact with these spaces or what's available. And so I think that, you know, these opportunities that you are creating for people at different points in their life and their ages, in community, families can come. I've come with my daughter, or that they can come individually, that they can have an app on their phone and check out. I mean, it's just, there's so much to think about and to talk about. So I just am, every time that I engage with the work that you all do, Amber, I'm just like really touched. And I just want more libraries and more people to be aware. You're the third librarian that we've had as a presenter in the Digital Humanities Speaker Series, which, you know, I think also, you know, goes to say how much I think that librarians and library spaces need to be a part of this conversation when we're talking about the digital humanities, because again, the humanities is this umbrella that includes, you know, so many different disciplines: literature, philosophy, religion, arts, performing, visual. New York Public Library has a performing arts library. I've gone there when I was as a fellow for the Whitney Museum when I was working on the Alvin Ailey exhibition. I was giving a scholarly talk about that exhibition, and I was able to go and listen to audio records of Alvin Ailey talking about his practice. And the fact that these resources have been digitized and made available for people to go in person, but also, as you mentioned, many of these are available online, which means that they're actually accessible to maybe an international audience as well. And so that is, you know, something that I wanted to sort of explore and ask you about is I'm really curious about, because of these, you know, your commitments, the New York Public Library's commitments to digital access, to making so much of your holdings, to digitizing your holdings, to making them available in different formats, even as far as curriculums or content like reading books, etc., watching, you know, audiovisual content, etc. Has the global community come into this conversation? What is going on in terms of libraries globally interfacing with each other? I'm just sort of curious about what is that looking like, or is that something that you would you know, imagine or hope that would be something that would be more developed in the future?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So for me, I feel like I'm such a small puzzle piece in this, right? And so at the New York Public Library, I'll be honest, like I am hyper focused on what I'm doing. And so I do feel like we do have people internationally emailing us, and I don't see all of the emails, right? Even just coming to see our spaces. Um, and I'm sure that some of my colleagues in certain departments, especially our research collections, they probably have more access and knowledge to that than I do. But I also do think as I'm growing as a librarian and I'm really standing in on my career because it sometimes just being in New York City, it's just so much trying to figure out all of this stuff that I think being able to speak to a wider audience, right, and grow and share what we're doing, because sometimes I don't even realize from this perspective that you're seeing it and how powerful this is. I just do this every single day, and I don't realize sometimes the impact. I know what I do is important, and I know that, but I don't see it that way. So I think I'm still figuring that out, but I would love to learn and grow from others and share. So thanks for that question. I'm sorry that I couldn't fully answer it.
No, I mean, it's something that, you know, I'm increasingly interested in thinking about as I'm you know, engaging in more global transcontinental conversations, is thinking about how digital humanities can, you know, be accessible to intercontinentally, and so I love that you mentioned that you know that the work that you're doing is important, but you're not always seeing your audience, and that has come up in our speaker series where I've been encouraging the students who are mostly graduate students, master's students, and doctoral students to engage in archiving, to become archivists, to look at their communities, to engage in documenting, researching, writing about their communities, their experiences, and really just amplifying those. And one student said, "Well, I don't know if who's interested." And I told him a lot of times especially in the digital space, your audience is going to be invisible because it's asynchronous, often, usually. Like right now we're synchronous, but anyone who's going to listen later, it's not going to be at the same time, happening at the same time. So it will be invisible. We won't know who all is, we won't be able to really capture. The digital space sort of exceeds capture of the audience and the dialogic nature of teaching and learning, which is something that's also very interesting. I love that you have this commitment with your Vibrant Voices project to visibilizing less visible, less amplified authors' works. And so I was wondering if you could speak to how do these authors get on your radar? Are you also looking internationally as well? We have, we're here in Togo, so how, if there's authors here, how would they become visible, for example, to your search for Vibrant Voices?
Oh, that's a great question. And so usually we're trying, because we're slightly newer, even though we're New York Public Library, there's so many people, right, and so many different avenues. So we're trying to build ourselves with our publishers to make those connections to say, here's our criteria and this is what we're looking for. Can you send us titles, right? And I think with the more knowledge of people hearing or knowing about it, sometimes we do get people sending us submissions, right? And what a beautiful thing to be on somebody's radar like that. And so really it's just kind of, if people hear about us, we don't have like a website, but I guess it would be word of mouth. Like, I know this person, do you want to submit it? Right. And it, like, if they email us, we'll accept. But we do need like reviews of books, right? So it can't be self-published, right? At the library, we do have certain policy rules. So
Mm.
usually with purchasing of books, we would need three reputable reviews of a book before it can be considered for purchase. Um, and then I do believe, because I'm also, again, not part of that team, but I feel like they probably need to buy it from a specific warehouse or however, right? So if those titles are being sold to where they're purchasing from, or how can they find that purchaser? So again, we are looking and scouring. Sometimes it's hard. So word of mouth sometimes is really how we are getting titles and authors. So please, if you are writing, if you have the reviews, please send us stuff. Or if you know people, we'd love to hear.
And when you say these reviews, I'm thinking about our audience who are faculty and graduate students. And one of the things that is important in academia is publishing, right? Having opportunities to write. And one of the things that graduate students can do is write reviews of books, right? And so this is something that can be published in journals and academic spaces. And this is one way for us in the diaspora and to amplify and validate the authors that are in our communities, is to also do these book reviews, which we're hearing now from Amber at New York Public Library, that's one of the qualifiers. Having had these books reviewed is one of the qualifiers. So I encourage the students in the audience to think about writing reviews of authors' works that think are important, particularly those that are culturally responsive or that deal with your cultural specificity. So speaking of cultural specificity, one of my favorite libraries in the New York Public Library system is the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. And I was wondering if you could speak to why, what that is for those in the audience who don't know, and why is a specialized library like the Schomburg, why do these spaces remain vital for us in the humanities and digital humanities, or for researchers in today?
That's a great question. So Arturo Schomburg, he devoted his life to preserving materials focused on African American, the African diaspora, and African experiences. Um, and so the collection has over 11 million items. And it is a very unique and special library. And so sometimes, again, when we're talking about access, right, it's nestled in the heart of Harlem, right? And it was so special because in that area where the library is, we just had so much of the Harlem Renaissance going on, right? And so if you know the Schomburg Library, you might feel I can walk in there, but a lot of people, even in our communities, don't feel that they can walk in or that they know what it's about. And so there we have different free programs going on, different events. They have exhibitions of their archives and their materials. There's a gift shop, right? And then there are researchers who are using that space to write their scholarly works to look at our archives. Um, and so they are trying to build community, but I think again, word of mouth, letting people know that they can go in there. With that library, if you're just looking at the exhibits, right, you don't need your library card. Right. And so just to be able to explore, and I think having special libraries that are dedicated to something, right, can build a different type of community, right, and can help you with your research or making you feel empowered to do research. Um, one of the most special experiences I had right before the pandemic. One of my Catholic schools that I work closely with, I think they were the fifth graders or seventh graders, I can't remember. We went on a class trip to Schaumburg, and one of the parents came with us, and she was like, I grew up in this neighborhood, and I didn't know I could walk in here.
Mm,
Right. And now she's a parent who had a kid who didn't know that they could walk in there. So just being able to share that space and they could
mm.
have conversations on these sources, right? I think that's why having specialized libraries are so important, right? Because it's a different experience than going to our branch libraries and being able to have so many different experiences at this one place that's called the library, um, I think is really beautiful.
Absolutely. And I love, speaking of those experiences, I love that you talk about libraries as exhibition spaces. And I feel like a lot of, especially academic libraries, sort of miss out on thinking about the library as an exhibition space. And, even thinking about the digital representation of the library as a space, as an opportunity for exhibition as well. Exhibition, not just visual, but audio visual, because, even in the humanities, we're still talking about sonic content. We're also still talking about embodied content, which has come up in our speaker series. We've talked quite a bit about embodiment and thinking about, African epistemologies and the nuances. And so that's one of the reasons why I think the Schomburg is so important, because a lot, like, as you mentioned, a lot of people around the world, when they visit New York, they might not realize that there's a library that's specialized in African diaspora research. And so that's very, very important. Now I want to open up to our audience, the students that are and faculty who are in the room live, or anyone online who may have a question. I'll just sort of pause for a moment.
Okay, please come forward. We have the microphone here.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Amitepe Lionel, and I'm a student in economics. Thank you for the presentation. It was very, very interesting. And my question is, you've talked about representation, how students that are from minorities can feel represented in the library. And I want to know, apart the books, is there any other activities like maybe sometimes dances or shows that are specific that will highlight a culture or something that is specific to a minority? That's the question. I hope it's clear. Yeah.
Yes, I love that question. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, perfect. Yeah, so here we have like our cultural heritage months, and like every month there may be a different we'll have our Jewish Heritage Month, our Caribbean Heritage Month, our Arab Heritage Month, Native American, Latinx. Um And so the libraries will produce right now, I think we're because it's about to be February here, so our Black History Month celebrations and our Lunar New Year. That's what we're focused on right now. And all of that's on our website. So we have specific programming, whether it's a book club or a book series focused on somebody of that culture or heritage, or a program or a film that's being shown. Um, Right. And again, we have our three separate library systems. And so I also feel like at Queens Public Library, which has it is a large mix of different communities and strong heritage culture that they are also, like you mentioned, dances. I really feel like Queens probably has dances. Um, and also something that I advocate to my students in the classrooms is if there's something happening at a library that you go to once in a while, but that's not your home library where you hang out, advocate and use your voice and speak up and ask for something, right? Again, we have to think of libraries as shared spaces. So if we didn't have that thing that you were really seeking, how can you work with your librarian to be like, how can we build this? Because you have a community that would come and do this thing if you offered it in the library. But yeah, that's a really great question. I love that. I will also highlight, um, right, again with building community in different communities. Years ago, before I started, somebody started the anti-prom here at NYPL, which was a prom, a dance for anybody who may not have felt welcomed at their own prom for however they may identify, and they didn't feel safe going to their school's big dance. Um, so every year at the library, we have this huge prom. You could come dressed up in a ball gown or you could come in your pajamas. We'd have DJ, we have music, food, dance activity, and it was only for teenagers, right? And so again, and now we have it in all three of our boroughs. So we really do have large scale things. We have an event for Halloween where we shut down the seventh floor library and it's only for teenagers and they have contests and food. So again, how do we utilize those spaces sometimes? So thank you for that question.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that you highlight the library as a shared space that we can co-create. That we can go to librarians and share what we would like to see and maybe even participate in making that happen. I have done that myself and seen things realized. So definitely feel, I hope the audience feels encouraged to feel to feel a community responsibility to supporting and engaging with the libraries, even at the level of suggesting programming and content. Any other questions online or in person?
Yes, please.
Yeah, hello. So, yeah, my name is. It's a great pleasure for
Def-
me to be here. I hold a bachelor in civil engineering, and right now I work as a English tutor part-time. So we have a say in our language that it goes this way: a lot of meat in a sauce does not ruin the sauce. So I know that we have a lot of English teaching materials out there. So I wanted to ask if you do have those kind of books in your library. And I came in a little bit late, so I wanted to know, how do we get access to the library? Because we have a little experience with the e-library from the State Department, because we help at American Corner, and you need to go through a training. They're going to tell you how and where to find things, and before you get a certificate that allow you to use the resource. So I wanted to ask if it's the same process or a little bit different. And the second question I had was about, you mentioned the fact that reading now is not really frequent, is not coming easily out of teens and young people. And me, myself, I was not reading, and recently I found that, okay, we have good resources, and it is important to cultivate your knowledge through readings. So, what are the ways you've used to get those young people to feel and to see the importance of reading? So I think using the library as the space for those extracurriculum activities like dancing, the prom, those things might be really good. If we can have all those activities, those we can afford to do over here, so we can get our students close to our library and they can exploit those resources. So I hope is a question and kind of whatever. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Before I answer, I just want to say I love the print of your shirt, the green pops. So I think the first question was about how to get the like books and resources for I think your professional development with tutoring. I think so I do have a handout and I do have links to a lot of things that might help even with your tutoring with the kids, like different activities that you might be able to incorporate with using them. We also have our educator collection that may have some literature that might help you. But I also sometimes with best practices, right, and different cultures, they may not work. I'm not really sure, but I would highly suggest like you can look at our educator collection to kind of see what we're offering or what some teachers have suggested for titles for them. It'll be maybe discussions on how to manage a classroom and like what titles to use. So I hope that helps. If you have more questions, definitely please feel free to email me and I can help you with that. And I think for trying to get students to find that love for reading, right? It is really hard. I was not hooked as a child reading, and it took me a really long time and later in life. And I think sometimes for librarians, we call it like a reader's advisory. So having a conversation with somebody is the most important thing, and really just kind of maybe asking them what do they like, right? And it doesn't have to be like, what do they like to read if they're like, I'm not really a reader. What do they like to listen to? What are they interested in? Are they somebody who's interested in history? Are they interested in current events? Are they interested in escaping, right? The library could be like maybe you're into fantasy. For me, like I really love nonfiction. I love photography books, right? And they may not have a ton of words. So you have to start to ask them what are they interested in and maybe trying to pair that, right? I always tell my students that I work with, I could find a whole bunch of titles after asking you questions to get to know you, and you may not like any of them, right? That doesn't offend me, but I'm here to try to help you find something. We also have a database again that for us you have to have access with a library card, but it also helps with reading recommendations for students and adults, right? Because we have adults who sometimes are like, I don't know what to read either. I think it's always like read widely and think outside the box sometimes, right? Maybe you have a student who really loves dance. So are you able to find them a photo book on the history of dance, but also maybe find them a fictional book about a teenager who's in dance school? And how can you meet them somewhere in the middle? I hope that helps. I think trying to find and engage students, right, it really starts with that conversation and getting to know them first, and knowing that you can pull from so many different things. Maybe they need a magazine and not a full chapter book, right? And how can we access something in the library that's magazine-like instead of a book, right? Or maybe they just want to listen to it and they never thought about that. Maybe words and reading is too much, but listening is the same as reading, right? And it uses a different part of the brain. So pinpointing, so many different avenues.
I love it. Oh, I mean, so wonderful. There's so many different options and really focusing on what they're interested in and letting that be the jump off for even the decision of the type, the modality of the reading is. Thank you so much, Amber, for that response. The Brooklyn Library, are they able to get live? Because I just remember hearing, and I know that Dr. Begadou has a question online, so we do have one last question. But did the Brooklyn Library, are they offering access to their content internationally, or was that nationally? I feel like I heard something about that.
You know what? I honestly don't know about Brooklyn Public Library, but I can try to find out some
Okay.
information. And I can also look at Queens because I'm not really sure.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Begadou, you have a question for Amber? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here, and I would also like to appreciate Amber for a presentation. I follow, but at the time I move a little bit, so I really appreciate. I was in New York City, and I had the privilege also to go to the public library. I know that there are a lot of places, and I think it is very, very nice to visit the public library in New York City because it's full of various material that we need. And in your presentation, uh, I understood. I don't know if I misunderstood that there are possibility for those who are not like students, the educators from New York University, because I know for some people temporary they can have access. Now for those who are not related to the New York City or New York, who are not entitled to New York Public Library materials, as Frank has asked the question now, I'm an educator here, a teacher here, and I know some of my students or myself will need to have access to some online tools now that technology allows. Do you think, because as we are saying, we want to share knowledge, do you think we need to make it more liberal instead of giving it only limiting the access to only people who are in New York now that we have, don't you think that it will be good to make it global so that the knowledge that we acquire from resources, even from Togo, very far away, because I have the privilege to take part in exchange program, but how many Togolese have that privilege of traveling to New York or other places, but making it liberal because we want knowledge. We are talking about digital humanities. How can we put the human there so that those who have limited, means will also have access to quality information? So, what do you think we should do, and you can help us maybe in developing countries as well? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, what an amazing question. And I do think it would be so great if we could share more widely and easily um our resources, right? And I'm sure again because I'm not the policy and I don't know certain departments and developments, but I wonder if there is a way that we can make better connections, right? Especially with our universities. Um, how could we say, like, maybe as a professor, I'm teaching this, can we have limited access, right? For because I know that we do have that for researchers in person. I think they could get like a 3-month researcher pass, but how could we extend that to be digital? Um, I can't speak for the New York Public Library, but I do think it is a something that is important. And maybe if you were to reach out, I could direct you to other people who might be able. Maybe there is something that the library is doing that I have no privy to, because also I work with like K through 12, but I'm sure my colleagues in the research department or even in our interlibrary loan department work more internationally or globally, and I just don't know about that. So again, please, we can share contact, right? And this is just opening a conversation and dialogue, even if there's no hard answers yet.
Thank you very much. And I think that is one of the reasons for the Fulbright program. So Dr. Kofi being here will be our ambassador. Now, when she gets back to New York, to the States, maybe she can take that voice and see how we can work the things out. Now, but I will be also happy if you share contact, and I will also be maybe in contact because I am the co-host of Dr. Kofin here, so we can take it from there and see who we can talk to and how things can help. Thank you.
I
I
love
love
it.
it. Would definitely advocate for that, Dr. Begazu, and I'm happy to make those to connect you and Amber and also to advocate for that when I go back to New York City as well, because I do think that you bring such an important point. Look at all the students in the audience; they're very interested to gain access to this knowledge, and you know that's part of the whole goal of the digital humanities is to expand accessibility. So. Thank you so much, Amber. As we close today's session, this reminds us that access is not simply about availability, it is about use, care, belonging. Libraries, as we've seen in your presentation, are living infrastructures that create opportunities and teach people how to navigate knowledge, how to feel supported. And you used the word feel. You wanted teachers to feel supported. And I love that you used the word feeling because that brings in that embodiment part too. And how in teaching to how to encounter information with confidence and feeling connected and welcome. Through digital collections, outreach, and multilingual resources and programming across the lifespan, the work of the New York Public Library shows how public institutions can and should shape digital humanities in practice by making knowledge usable, joyful, and culturally responsive. And maybe we're going to advocate for in more international and global. Today, I think that New York Public Library would be a great place to start with that because you're already such a leader in making accessible content. Today also reinforces the importance of library literacy. I love that you share with us this term and put it on our radar, library literacy as a thing, helping learners not only find information, but understand how to engage it critically and ethically. Thank you, Amber, for reminding us that digital access becomes meaningful only when it's paired with relationships, guidance, and care. And I appreciate everyone who joined us online and in person for being a part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody's waving to you.